Hey friends, it's Laurie. Thanks so much for stopping by. Today I'm making some fall and Halloween decor, a standing pumpkin, and 3 projects that will work perfect on a tiered tray. I did use mostly Dollar Tree supplies, and I really hope you enjoy them, so let's get busy. I'm starting my DIY by using a scrap piece of wood that I found in my kindling bin. It's a 2x4 and it measures 3.5 by 3.5 inches. It wasn't in perfect condition, so I used a piece of sandpaper and I filed down the rough edges. I used my white acrylic paint and I gave it a complete coat. When it's completely dry, and because I want my sign to have a bit of a rustic appearance, I'm using a sanding block and I'm sanding around all 4 of the edges. This is completely optional. If you prefer to keep the block white, just omit this step. The Dollar Tree is selling these really cute seasonal rub-on transfer stickers, and I'm going to use this one and attach it onto the wooden block. I removed it from the package, peeled off the protective backing, and then I centered it on my sign. Once I had the sticker in place, I then just used a regular craft stick and I rubbed the transfer down onto the wood. From there, it was so easy. I just removed the sticker backing. It would have taken me a while to make this on my Cricut, but it literally took me less than a minute. To accent my sign, I'm using some of this Dollar Tree buffalo check ribbon. I added a dot of hot glue on the top of my sign and then wrapped the ribbon around. I continued adding a dot of hot glue here and there to help hold the ribbon in place. To embellish the top, I'm using 3 of these pretty fall Dollar Tree leaves. I added a dot of hot glue onto the top corner and attached the leaves. For my pumpkin accent on the top, I'm using one of these little pumpkins, and I found these at the Dollar Tree. I won't need the wire, so I'm just sliding it out of the bottom. I added some hot glue in between the leaves and then attached the pumpkin. For the floral accent, I'm adding on these 3 small yellow and 2 small white flowers that I had left over from a past project. I'm also using a sprig of orange fall grass, and I picked this up at the Dollar Tree. I added some hot glue behind the pumpkin and then attached the grass. When I was done, I then attached the 3 yellow flowers. I didn't have any exact pattern, I just kind of placed them around the leaves. And once I had all the yellow flowers in place, I then attached the 2 white. Now that I have all my flowers in place, I'm going to add on some green leaf accents. I'm cutting a few off of this ivy stem, and these kind of remind me of an actual pumpkin leaf. And once again, I don't have a pre-planned idea of where I'm placing them. I'm just making sure that they're kind of evenly spaced around the top. And now that I have all the leaves in place, this makes the cutest addition to my fall tiered tray. Today I'm participating in the Dollar Tree Florals Challenge, and it's being hosted by Ellie from DIY from House to Home. Joining in is my friend Emily from Farm Charm Chic. If you're new to my channel and you're enjoying my videos so far, please consider clicking on that little red subscribe button below and leaving me a big thumbs up. And to all my returning friends, you know I'm always so happy to see you and I love reading your comments. To make my Frankenstein and Mummy DIYs, I'm using 2 of the foam dice from the Dollar Tree, and it doesn't matter which color you use because we are going to be painting them. Once I remove the dice from the packaging, I always hang on to those little mesh bags because I've actually used some of these in past projects. So I'm making a Frankenstein and a Mummy, and I'm painting one with a shamrock green paint and the other with my white acrylic paint. To make them easier to paint, I'm using 2 of the wooden skewers from the Dollar Tree, and I'm poking one into the center of each dice. I'm painting my first dice white for the Mummy. And when I'm done, I'm then going to paint the next dice green for the Frankenstein. Once my dice are painted and to help them dry, I just stand the skewers in a large glass. I'm working on Frankenstein first, and now that my green dice is dry, I'm adding on some hair. I'm using my pencil and I'm making some irregular V's around the top part of the dice. I'm doing this to give myself an idea of where I want his hair to be, but you can always just freehand this with your paintbrush. Now that I'm done, I'm using my black acrylic paint and painting the top of Frankenstein's head along with the sides of his hair. As I'm painting the V's, I'm just kind of covering my pencil marks, but I'm not being super fussy. Now that he's dry, I'm adding on his eyes and I'm using my white acrylic paint. I added some to the end of my paintbrush and then I just kind of swirled it around in 2 circles. I waited for the paint to dry, and now using the end of a paintbrush and my black acrylic paint, I just placed a dot in the center of each eye. I'm now adding on his mouth and a little scar, and I'm using my black Sharpie. If you don't have a Sharpie on hand, you can always use your paintbrush or even a paint pen. For the base of my Frankenstein, I'm using 12 of the tumbling tower blocks from the Dollar Tree, and I'm attaching them together with my Starbond thick glue. I'm attaching the blocks side by side, and this glue sets up super quick on unfinished wood in like a minute or 2, so if you'd like to check the company out, I'll have them linked below in my description. After the first set of 6 are attached, I'm now attaching the second onto the top. I'm also making the same base for my Mummy, so I'll be making 2 of these. Now that they're set up, I'm using my black and my white acrylic paint, and I'm giving each base a coat. With the base dry, I'm now attaching Frankie's head to the top by adding on some hot glue. And as I attached him, I made sure to center his head on the base. To give Frankenstein a bit of a shine, I'm giving both the head and the base a complete coat with my Mod Podge. I'm adding those 2 classic bolts on each side of Frankenstein's head, and I just grabbed these out of a jar of bolts that my husband had in his workshop. To attach them, I used a wooden skewer and made a hole on both sides of his head, and then I just screwed the bolts in. After the first bolt was attached, I then attached the second. For his arms and his feet, I used 4 more of the tumbling tower blocks, and I had painted 2 of them green and 2 of them black. To add his feet, I added some hot glue to the top of the 2 black blocks. I then just placed him on top. To attach his arms, I placed some hot glue on the side of each and then attached them. To finish up and to give him some clothes, I'm using about a 12-inch piece of the Dollar Tree black creepy cloth. I just draped it over the front of him, around his neck. I gathered it in the back and I tied a couple of knots in the fabric and then I hot glued it in place. Now that Frankenstein is complete, it's time to make the mummy. I already have my white dice painted and I'm using 2 of these wooden circles. I picked this package up at Michael's. I'm painting them both black, but you can always just draw these eyes on your mummy. Now that they're dry, I'm using my glue gun and attaching the 2 eyes together on the mummy's face. With the eyes in place, I'm now attaching it to the base, the same as I did Frankenstein, by adding on some hot glue and then just placing the head on top. To wrap my mummy, I'm using 2 of these stretch bandages, and you can pick something like this up at the Dollar Tree. I'm folding the bandage in half and I'm hot gluing the end on the bottom of the base. From here, I'm wrapping the bandage around the mummy and I'm kind of spot gluing it here and there to help hold it in place. As I was attaching the bandage, I did make sure to keep it folded, but I wasn't super fussy, so if it was a little out of place here or there, it won't make a difference. Before I ended this roll of my bandage, I did make sure to kind of cross over just one side of his eye. So now that the first roll is complete, I'm adding on the second bandage. Once again, I'm folding the bandage in half, and this time I'm attaching it to the side. There's really no right or wrong way to do this, and I made sure this time to pull the bandage up over the other eye, so it's just slightly covering it. From here, I continued adding the hot glue, tacking the bandage in place until I had the mummy completely covered. Now that my mummy is completely wrapped and covered, I'm going to add a little age to it by using my pencil. I made sure it was freshly sharpened, and now all I'm doing is rubbing it on the edges and in the middle of the fabric. While you're doing it, the bandage is going to kind of fray and pull a little bit, but this just adds to the vibe of the mummy. To darken the area around the mummy's eyes, I just kind of filled it in with my pencil. And now that I'm done my Frankenstein and Mummy, I'm ready for Halloween. I'm starting my blessed pumpkin by using this wooden cutout from the Dollar Tree. I removed the hanger and the little bow, and using my white acrylic paint, I gave it a complete coat. Now that it's dry, I'm going to accent it with my pencil. I'm rubbing it along the side and the edges of the pumpkin, and then just kind of rubbing the pencil in with my finger. I worked my way around the pumpkin, adding on the pencil, and then rubbing it in. But if you prefer to have a completely white pumpkin, just skip this step. Now that it's finished, it's time to embellish it. For the pumpkin stem, I'm just using an old flat stick and I'm attaching it with my E6000. I'm first adding on some hot glue and then following it up with my E6000. The hot glue will help it set quickly and the E6000 will help hold it permanently. To accent my pumpkin, I'm using some of these fall leaves along with one of these pretty sunflowers from the Dollar Tree. I'm also using some of these small sunflowers. I had them left over from a past project and I had picked these up at the Dollar Tree as well. I snipped off some of the leaves and now using my glue gun, I'm attaching them to the pumpkin. With those in place, I'm now attaching on the sunflower. And now using my glue gun, I attached on the 4 little sunflowers. These are the colors that I chose for my pumpkin, but you can always change them up to fit your home decor. As a filler accent, I'm adding in some of this Dollar Tree fall grass. And once again, I just used my glue gun and accented around the top of the pumpkin. With those all in place, I'm now adding in another fall leaf. And I attach this right next to the sunflower. I always love adding in pops of green, so I'm adding in some leaves from this ivy stem. And once again, I used my glue gun and just kind of randomly placed them around the flowers and the leaves. I'm using this faux leather bless sign from the Dollar Tree and I'm painting it with my barn red paint. Now that it's dry, I'm using my E6000 and attaching it to the front of the pumpkin. To stand my blessed pumpkin up, I glued 4 of the tumbling tower blocks together, 2 sets, and I painted them white. I added some hot glue along with my E6000 and attached both to the back of the pumpkin. The hot glue holds them in place while the E6000 sets them up permanently. And this pretty blessed pumpkin is complete. Thanks so much for stopping by, and I really hope you had fun making these projects with me. If you're new to my channel and you're thinking, hey, I'd like to come back and hang out with her again, don't forget to click that little red subscribe button below. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will see you soon. Bye, everybody!